All right, so let's just quickly go over the homework, um, and then we can touch on the new topics. So the very first one was pretty straightforward. You just had to kind of test out the relational operators, right? So first you could eliminate by just comparing if they're both vegan, right? So then you only kind of offer the vegan dishes, then either or, and then you print out this message. And then finally you offer up anything on the menu, right? So it's, um, if you didn't get it or if you had any feedback from Deepak or Asan, you can compare against this code base. Then comes the other one, which is similar, nothing really crazy.
Can you please tell us about the curly parentheses? Like, where exactly are they needed?
Why?
Yeah.
That separates the code block, and also it's a rule, right? So if you get rid of them, um, so a lot of time it would work, right? But in Java, it's recommended to put them. Now, in this instance, it probably would work because you're not writing any more logic inside of it. Otherwise, it gets out of touch. So the key thing is, every time you're writing a loop, or which we're gonna learn very soon, or you're writing an if statement, right after your expression, I want you to put a curly braces and then close them. So that way, the programmer knows whatever inside of that curly braces, that's what gets executed if the condition turns out to be true, right? So in other words, it just separates the block of code that needs to get executed if this were to be true or false. Make sense?
Yes.
So it's a syntax thing. It's not something that I've decided to put it, right. It's just more of what Java wants us to do, all right. But newer version of Java's, they're trying to be like dynamic languages, but again, there's gonna be point mismatches and stuff like that. So we gotta either keep them or not keep them. So we decided to go with them. All right. All right. Any other questions on the first homework? The second one is kind of on the same road. So if you had something like this, and this could have been done a few different ways, but let's just go with one of those. So if you go by requirement, you say, well, I want to be able to put car on P mode, D mode, N mode, R mode. So we know that we need to have a mode variable that kind of controls that switch, right? So you just say, okay, well, as soon as it becomes a single character, instead of doing a string, and you could have done a string, it's not a big deal, but car is probably more appropriate, and you just call it a mode, right? And that's what's pretty much controls it. So it could have been either on D or P or whatever may be the case, right? Or N. And then if you read the second statement, and based on that, you just keep writing if else for all four possible ways, right? So as soon as you kind of do this, you already got rid of your last two requirements. In fact, last three requirements, right? So this is pretty much done once you write those if else, because if you look at N, R, and the last requirement, it doesn't really have any type of nested if inside of it, right? So that's what the first requirement pretty much did for you. So then you're left with only two, right? So you're saying, okay, well, if I'm on P mode and parking type is parallel, then I can park between two cars, right? All right, so the mode equals to P. Now, okay, you let the user know you're in a P mode, but now it's checking another statement, right? You can say, well, is that parallel? It could be either true or false, right? If it's true, we are going to allow them to park between two cars, right? And then comes the last one, which is if I'm on D mode, I can put drive type to snow type, sports type So in here, I need to control it with another variable, right? So we could do string drive type, and that could be in a 3 possible stage, right? Sport, regular, and snow. And then when we get there, we just build this nested if here, right? If it's snow, we do whatever, regular, sport, and so forth. And then the other twos are literally you're just kind of putting the strings there. If it's N, then you can proceed with the car wash. If it's R, you can only reverse the car and backup camera is activated, right? I mean, if we were to build a car, whatever function that does those things, you just plug in there, and that's pretty much will kind of control it. So, in high level, that's pretty much what I wanted you guys to do. Okay, but you see how this code is very nasty. It's just a lot of if else, if else. I don't like that. So whenever we run into that kind of situation, we should not be doing else if, right? I think I'm okay. Like when we're doing this only for like 2 or 3 statements, that's fine, right? But whenever we get into like 4, 5, 6, right, or even 10 or 20, right? That's not the right syntax. Or I mean, it will work. Don't get me wrong, it probably work, but that doesn't mean we should be doing that way. Okay, so let's start with the new topic today. Let me get rid of all of that. Before we start on the new, we're still gonna be in the conditional statement. I would actually like to go over something called scoping. So in Java, we have 2 types of scoping. We have a field scope defined outside of all code blocks, and then you have local scope defined in a code block, right? So note, in a scope, you can access variable defined within the scope of or any parent and sister variable. So what is the difference between field variables and local variable? That's what we're going to identify now, right? So just high level, without looking the syntax, you can think of field variable as something everyone can access, right? So maybe we have some access to something within the street of Fifth Avenue, right? Everyone within this block has an access to a Fifth Avenue, let's assume, right? But then you have some local variable within each buildings, right? Think of like an ID of a building number, or maybe a doorman person, or like a specific elevator. Those are sort of within the scope of the building. And then you can even go another layer, right? Maybe within the floor, you have different entity now. You have a Technosoft as a business, right? And so forth, right? So you can you get the point, right? Now, I have whoever inside of Technosoft has access to Fifth Avenue as a street also has an access to an elevator, but someone at Fifth Avenue doesn't have access to Technosoft, right? So that's kind of when you're building software, you have to build it the same way. Unfortunately, you can't see them, right? It's just like kind of you have to write them out, right? So when you think of field variable, it's something everyone can access within the scope of that class, and then if you have some local variables that can be trapped into a specific scopes, right? And let's kind of go over that a little bit, and then we can figure this out. So let's build the very first variable, and I'm just going to put static, but don't worry about the word static. Like I said, we're gonna address this later, and we'll just say var1 equals to var1. So this is our field variable. this is something that everyone can access, right? And then I will create something here. Let's just say if true, ignore that. I'm just putting some dummy code here, and then say system out. And you see how I have access to var1? Like I can access var1 because var1 has a scope of entire class. You see this? If you just double click this, so from the beginning of your class till the end of your curly braces, I can access var1. Make sense? All right. So that's why I was able to access it here, right? But let's create another variable called string var2 equals to var2. Out var2. But you see, the var2 is trapped within the scope of this code block, right? You see, when I try to use var2 outside of this code block, what happens? It just doesn't even give me an option anymore, right? So that's what's called scoping. You have to understand which variable needs to be outside of your code block and which needs to be more of shared across the entire code base, right? So it's very important that you decide that.
So what scope would that be? Would that fall
The
under var1?
var1 is a field variable. Okay, so just to make it better, we can say, I'll just name the ones that are field, right? So we'll say var1 would be your field variable, right? And then the local scope could be var2. Make sense? All right. We can even go make, even crazier, right? So you can say if true, we are saying string var var3 equals to var3. So this is also, it's kind of trapped now inside of the scope of only here. But any of them can access var1, right? So I can access var1 from any point, right? I have access. See, in here I have access to all of them, right? I have access to var2 is kind of a parent of var3, right? And then this is a parent of all of them. So that's what they're saying here. In this scope, you can access any of the parent or ancestors, right? So you can access its parent, which is var2, but also an ancestor, which is pretty much your var1. This will be the ancestor of all of them, right? So again, you don't have to go crazy about this. Believe me, once you start working on projects and you can get something through or get something out, you'll figure out, right? So it's the best way to learn this is definitely through practice, just by watching the lecture. What you want to take away from this is what is scoping. Well, that's when you kind of, Mohammed mentioned something about scoping. I shouldn't, like certain things, you don't want this to be exposed, right? You don't want this value to be exposed outside of the code block, because what if someone reassigns it to something else, right? You can always remember from class 1 or class 2 we went over was that you can reassign values, right? So if you expose them outside of that code block, anyone can reassign it, and that's not good, right? And then your entire logic's going to break here. So that's like the whole main purpose of, trapping them within the certain code blocks, all right? So that's what's high level, that's what's scoping. We're going to go over this more as
What if
we...
we create var2 on the top as well, like the same name?
Yeah, then if you open var2 on the top, I mean the field level, not top, field level, right? Top could be anything. So in a field level, that means it's going to be you'll have like 2 parent or 3 parent or whatever may be the case. So if it's at a field level, everyone can access it. All right. If it's more at a local level, you have scoping within the curly braces and logics, right? Okay. One second. So just like if else, there is another conditional statements that we can use, right? Every time you run into multiple ones, you don't want to keep doing else if, else if, else if, right? So we can use another syntax called switch, right? So switch has a couple of capabilities. So let's start doing the switch. So let's say we want to give a message to a student based on their grade ladder, right? So if they got an A, we want to say an excellent, B, well done, so forth, right? So if you wanted to do this, you can say, well, we could just write if else. If grade equals to A, I'll do something B, C, D, but it's too many of those, right? There's a much cleaner way to do the same work. So we can do something like this. So let's say, right? And you can pretty much you'll do switch, then you pass in the variable that you want to evaluate against, right? So in this case, we are checking grade. So we'll say grade, and this will build your switch. So now you will start building out your cases, right? What do you want to do if the grade is equals to 1? What do you want to do if the grade is equals to B, and so forth, right? So the next step would be case A, so you will say excellent. And then let's do case B. Let's say, and this, we'll talk about this as well. And then I'll say case B. C. All done. Case Okay. And then we can also print out actual grade. But I have to get out of the switch statement. You see, the switch statement is the block of only controlling the cases, right? And we can say something like this here. Grade is, and then whatever the grade is, right? So we could have done this with if else, right? We could achieve the same thing with if else, but we're going to be approaching doing things, and it will make sense to you, right, in a little bit. So we want to compare what the grade is. So we're saying you pass in that variable, make sure the data types are same. If this was a string, make sure this your variable value is a string. If this was a number, like an integer, make sure your data types are also integer. But you're not specifying the data type when you should know this by syntax, right? So we're saying grade equals to A, which is fine, and then you start building out your cases. So first keyword we use switch, and then pass in the variable that you want to compare against, open a curly braces, close a curly brace, right? And then we're saying first case, if it's A, then print out excellent and break out of it, right? If it's B or C, then print out well done and break out of it. If it's D, you print out you passed and break out of it. If it's F, and so forth, right? Now, the keyword break is very important, right? And then finally, if it's it feels like something like X, right? So that's an invalid grade, and then by default, it's kind of like an else statement. By default, what do you want your grade to? What kind of message do you want to send it to your users, right? And then finally, you're just printing out whatever that grade value is. So, a couple of questions here. Why do you think we need a break statement?
It's separating two different things. I think to stop the code for running further if the achievement is required late, so stop the code for running further.
Okay, that's probably the closest answer. All of you guys, but that's fine. That's okay. Yes. So the break statement, what it's doing is if I met my requirement, I don't want to do anything else. Does that make sense?
Yes.
Soon as it's A, if the grade is equals to A, I just want to send a message called excellent and be done with it, right? I want to come out of this and go. In case of like else if, it does it automatically, right? It has a break, but it's kind of like built in within that condition, if conditions logics. But in here, the switch is not smart enough to get out unless you tell them to get out, right? So you have to explicitly say when to get out. But there's an advantage in it here, right? The advantage is if you had multiple things, right? Like in this case, I want to print out the same message for B and C. Now it's very convenient. I can have a fall through. So it's called fall through. So if the B is true, it will continue to evaluate against C, and then until it finds a break statement, it will continue to, dive deep that way, right? So in this case, let's say if I run A, what do I expect to see if I run this code? Right, your grade is A. That's fine. Now let's do B. What do I expect to see?
Well done.
Right? And then grade of this. If it's C, what do I expect to see? Somebody raise your hand.
You took the break out there. C, D, like well done, you passed, and but the grade is
So there's a bug here, right? So now you're getting well done, you're passed, because the code doesn't know when to stop, right? It's going to keep looking for a break statement, right? So you have to deliberately tell them when to break out of it, right? So, and that's by intention because in this case, we don't want it to break out. For B and C, we want to do the same thing, right? So therefore, it's no point of because otherwise I would have to do something like this. I have to copy this code, right? And do the same thing here. So that's repetitiveness, right? We don't want to repeat that code base. If you want to do the same thing, you want to combine them and let them fall through, right? Because regardless if it's B or C, I still want to do the same work. Make sense? Does it make sense, everyone?
Yeah.
Okay.
After the defaults, you can need break.
It's a good question. No, by default, it's automatically knows that that's a lie statement. Also, default has to be your last case. So don't put default as your first case, right? Default should be your last case. That's how compiler automatically knows that there is nothing else after that.
Why so we passed if our grade was B? Why it goes
The
to
bug.
C? Before, when it was
Yeah, because I got rid of break here.
yeah, but we still have B. Why we select
Yeah, because it doesn't find any break statement. It's at first checks B,
yeah,
it's correct.
yeah,
I understand that,
yeah,
right?
C also.
But then it will check C again, it will check D, everything. So it doesn't know when to stop unless you tell them when to get out. Even if as soon as it becomes true, it will keep going down the same route. Okay? So it's very essential you put a break wherever you wanted to put break.
System search there right
So-
like statements and then write everything, yeah?
Right. So as soon as it becomes true, it's kind of you can think of everything else becomes true. Right? So it's very important that you have to tell when to get out. And you're gonna have a class exercise to mess around with this. So
Is it possible to use a scanner with a switch state?
Still stuck on scanner.
I don't want to hear any more scanner question. Scanner has nothing to do with this, right? But that's okay. Scanner is to take input from
It's our favorite.
terminal. I regret going over scanner. I swear. I shouldn't have. I'm not going over scanner anymore for the next batch.
Because if you want to enter a grade,
Yeah, you
use
can
a
use
scanner.
scanner.
And so then
Yes.
that
Yes, you can do it.
switch
Alright.
statement or switch what's it called?
It's switch statement. You can call it switch statement.
I have a question. What if you need this grade empty?
Well, that's kind of you know it's going to
Is it taking
no it's
the
you can leave it empty, right? It's gonna keep complaining about it. But if you were to say leave empty, you'll probably just go into like a we didn't go over that yet. It's called null, right? It means nothing's there, right? If you have a variable but it's nothing there, so you're gonna run into an error, which is gonna be invalid grade, and it will say no. Does that make sense? All right. So now that we are very good at doing switch, right? What I want you to do for classwork is to I want based on the month, right? So we have 12 months in a year. Based on the month, I want you to tell me which season is this. Okay? So if it's I guess July, it should say summer. If it's December, it should say winter, right? So just kind of build this out, and you can use month as a current month and go from there. So based on the month, I want to know, and I want you to use switch, obviously, right? Don't write if else 12 times and do that. So just be smart to kind of or figure out a way when to use fall through, when do you want to use a break statement, and how many system out you need. Okay, so just take your time and do this, and then we'll do another exercise after that. Any questions from online? Are you guys okay with the task? Think of easy way. I need to, based on the month, I want to know the
Weather?
season. Season. We're not there yet. It's a month to get the weather. It's a pretty hard work, but just the season, right? Like fall, winter, summer, right? So it's usually what every 3 months is different season, right? So that's
Not in
what.
New York,
Oh, you guys get the point, right? So let's just focus on the test. I'm not telling you that. You should use that. If it's string, yes, you can use any data type. For my scenario, I needed to use char, right? Doesn't mean you're gonna have to use the same data type. It's not working. What's the
It's
deal?
not the charger. It's not the charger. I tried several chargers. It's just not taking any power.
How about home?
But I was charging the phone. I came here, it's charging.
You had? Do you have that charger with you?
Yeah, this is my original. I just got this like a few weeks ago.
Do you have?
Apple, right?
Do you have the insurance?
Excuse me? Apple? Insurance should be. Yeah, I purchased from Apple Store.
Okay,
It was
so
like, yeah, I don't know, but now it's not charging.
make sure to take it back today.
Yeah, no, maybe tomorrow. They will close it today.
24 hours. That one.
24 hours?
Yeah.
I think I will go.
It's actually better to go at night.
Hmm? Better
Oh,
go.
yeah, better to go at night. After the break, we're gonna have a quiz. So
Wait, what?
yeah. So just mentally be ready.
What about the old stuff or this?
No, let's focus on this for now. Don't worry about the quiz. Yeah.
From January to March is winter.
Hmm?
From January to March winter. No, December, January, February. Just from
It doesn't matter. Just so long as it's 3 months. I just want to know the code. I won't penalize you if you say July is winter. Did it work? Yeah? Nice. Done? Done. Nice.
How about the case sensitive?
That's fine. It doesn't matter. You can do case or non-case. But for now, let's just do regular. Don't worry about case sensitive right now.
No. I mean, if I put it,
I'm saying for now, it doesn't matter. Just do one case. Make it case sensitive. Okay? Yeah. Look, you gotta, yeah, because think about it. You're taking it from, I mean, that's not it. Okay. Just use simple. I want to use car. So you don't have to use car. You can just do straight. Yeah, it doesn't matter. You got it. All right, I think. Yeah, you guys are on the right track. So let's from online just submit it to Deepak. But let's just quickly go over this. Looks like you got this. How many of you guys are done? All right, I'll give another 7 minutes. Don't let him copy you. Don't, yeah, yeah, right. You can do it. Just keep thinking about it, right? It's okay to get it wrong. It's okay, right? That is the problem. What did I say? Using a string here, when you're putting a car syntax here, single scope. Come on. All right. All right. I think we can go for it. You guys gotta type faster. It's taking too long. Um, it's pretty much this, right? The whole point is I just wanted to see if you know how to do fall through. That's all. It doesn't matter about the seasons, right? So long as if it's a string, then you need to evaluate against a string, right? So you can't put single quote, right? So usually I try not to give you the same task that I'm doing, like YouTube, so that you can kind of get it right and feel confident. So, but it's important that you're thinking a little bit to just to solve the problem. All right. Um, it's 7:41. What we can do is we'll take a early break, and then once you come back, we'll do a quiz. All right. The quiz is it's not a multiple choice quiz today. You're gonna have to do a task. All right. So it's gonna be based on what we've been learning. Nothing crazy. All right. I'll send this on Slack for you to review. And please don't Google this answer because there is a lot of them. The only reason is I like to do this is because this is a very common interview questions, right? Especially like for beginners or for test automation engineer, it's a very easy one. And if you can knock it out, that means you're on the right track. You should be doing this stuff. So there's this like dumb game called like FizzBuzz. So if a number is, for instance, so this is the quiz. So if the number is divisible by 3, you should print fizz. If number is divisible by 5, you should print buzz, right? And then if number is not divisible by 3 or 5, then whatever the input is, so for instance 7 would be a number that you can divide by 3 or 5, right? So therefore you should just print that value, right? So let's do a quick test on this and then we can go over it. So this is in another language, but that's fine. So let's say right now I have 7. So if I run this code, what should I see? What should I see if I run this code based on our requirements? So 7, if it's not divisible by either, if we go back to our, if it's not divisible by 3 or 5, then it should be same input. So if I enter 7, right? So in our case, we are just saying 7. So that means I should get 7 back, right? Because it's not divisible by either of those values. So we got 7 back, right? So this is kind of our 7. And then if is, let's change this up. So let's say if it's 15. Right? We should see what? You should see FizzBuzz, right? Okay, perfect. So let's do another 2 tests, right? Make sure you test your code, right? So And then if we do something like 5, you should see what that's right. And then if you do 3, you should see fizz. Right? So these are your test cases, but make sure you obviously test and then obviously write the code as well. All right. So let's go get it. It's like about half an hour or so. Should be. Just think of like you're in an interview, right? So now is your first interview question you've got, and I mean, you're not gonna get a half an hour for this in an interview, but today that's fine. We can do half an hour. Let's shoot for half an hour, and if you're done, take a break or something. But I want to make sure that everyone gets enough time to work on this. All right. Please don't Google this. Like I said, it's a very popular interview question, so it's not going to help you by Googling this. Because in an interview, you're not going to write a code for that. You have to go to a whiteboard and draw this out, right? So it's very important that you do it yourself so you remember it, how you actually completed it, all right? Any questions from online? Not bad. And let's get rid of this dumb stuff. So you should have an input variable, and think of this is the one you can keep changing, okay? It could be 5 at points, it could be 3 at points, it could be 27 at points, it could be whatever at points, right? So in our case, we'll just keep it 7. Remember we talked about try to write the test first. You'll see how easy it is to write the code. I know nobody wants to do that, but that's, think about the test cases, which we kind of specified it here, and then try to build this out. Whatever the number you're trying to get, right? So in this case, like let's say if it's 7, it's not divisible by either of those numbers. You just print 7. Okay? So you just print the input. That's all. Okay. No Stack Overflow. Nothing. No, you have to do calculation, right? Yeah, that's right. You chest it out. You chest. Looks good. But that's excellent work. Great work. Basics is something that automatically you get it. See, the thing is, it's not gonna work for you, right? Because your package is a test, not basic. That's what's doing other. Oh, well, look at that. Typo. His basic C. Oh, no, ignore that. Oh, sorry about that one. I think it's for some other code that I was writing probably here. Yeah, don't worry about this stuff. You need a laptop?
It's not the software. I gotta go to Apple Store.
You call them?
Yeah, I'm calling them.
Okay. Are you done? You didn't understand the question? So it's a value, right? I want you to find out if this value is divided by 3 or 5. If it's divided by both, I want you to print out FizzBuzz. If it's divided by 3, I think it's Fizz. If it's divided by 5, then it's Buzz. If it's not divided by either one, then just print that value out. So think about it. That's okay. Like don't get frustrated if it's not working. That's why you're here, right? You have to do some math, right? That's the first case. So write an if statement, and then you have this option to put an expression. Yeah, no, get rid of all of that. Just get rid of all of this. Start over again, do if statement, and then do a calculation between the parentheses, and and then start writing the code. Think about it, you have to do math. How would you do math if you wanted to find out if this is divided by 3 or 5? So think about that, right? If we turn the Boolean, remember we've done equals to, greater than, less than, right? Go back to the ones that we were working on. No, that's nice. And the right track. Think about how we used to do math. Done? You're on the right track. That's it. You guys done up to me? Yes. Check. And then mission today. Finishing it up. You typing with one hand?
I think
You're thinking with another hand?
yeah, I don't think it's already, but I don't know what is next.
Code is not working.
No, it's working already. But I think about
Okay.
give me time.
No, okay, in that case you can use one hand.
No, I typed everything, but I
Yeah.
do something. I need to look at it.
Korea?
Oh, no.
Oh. It's okay, don't worry. We'll just go for it. Okay? Come on, you can do it. Yeah. You're gonna see the answer and you'll be like, oh my god, this is silly. Are you done? Okay, yeah, I checked it. What about you? Don't help her. Don't help her. Test case is the word. So don't.
Better?
That's okay. No, you don't have to do case. You can do if else. Yeah. It's very important, right? Think about it. You can also simplify this. Let me see if you guys can solve that. Yeah, that's one thing you should do. Instead of two things. You think about it. So if you're done, yeah, I want to give you another task. To see if you can simplify this. One condition will solve all of them.
The same.
Just that one. What's up? Are you done? Doesn't work.
The last one.
Think about order of operation. You've done it, but there's a bug. So solve that. Because if it's 15, it will never reach that code. Okay? What do you mean? This? Yes, it's not going to work because you have to solve all. You can't have an error on your project. Java. So because you have an error, it will keep popping up. So either comment it out or resolve the error. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
That's what he said. That's what he said. He said
Really had a seven.
I don't like that person. Why you have to do nested? No, no, it's the same calculation. It's just a different number. What is the first value? Yeah. 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 You can keep it. This is good. This is how I'll
Together.
Oh. Three of us. She got the answer? Yeah, because there's no number that would go into it. Right? There's no number. That's right. But I don't like that one. I like that one. That's what the requirement for. You didn't tell me. No, you want to. Maybe, yeah. Oh, yes. Yeah, I mean, why do you have a nested? Why is it nested? It doesn't have to be. You put a niche inside of it. Right? So just do one line. There's no nest. You don't have to do any nesting. Good? Okay? I was commanding. So here's it. No, I don't like the last. I don't like the last. You're good. You get it, but okay. Last two simplify. Bring it to one. No, you did. You were not able to print the last 15, so you added another bracket.
Yeah, I can simplify this. Let's take.
Okay.
And I mean, I'm just thinking. You said like you need to simplify. In the
Okay, don't make it. So this is the very first number where. But I don't like that one. I mean 515. Runs 15, what it means. You should print this one, right? So if you're running 26, do 15. What is that print? That's not good, right? You should print this plus. Order of operation. How are you doing? Brackets is fine, that's not important. You know? Run 15. See what I mean? Get the value. She said fizz bus, right? 3 and 5 goes into fizz bus. Okay. That's good. Got a hand out of 15. No, a little bit of a wrong side. Try to use margin. You know the percentage sign? You divide, then reminder. It's a reminder that means what doesn't go in there. Right? Just remember, reminder. Try to use that symbol, okay?
you know it's easy to like instead I knew how to use it, but I remember when I
First you have to do this, and
Yeah.
then you have to
Yeah,
do
yeah. I got it.
So we guys can do it. Your personal studies. If you need to that's fine. That's good.
I just
All right, 5 more minutes. why don't you do the same thing, but count down from 100 to 0? Okay? So let's figure out, take a 5 minutes, and see if you can count down to 0. Okay? Instead of counting up to 100, count down to 0. So this is what I want you to do. Create a while loop that counts down to 100 to 0. Alright? But this one was counting up to 100, so. Okay, I'm coming. You don't have to show me that. We're gonna go over it in like 1 minute. We're good? Alright, so let's do this one. We'll set the count to 100, right? And then we can do while count is greater than or equals to 0. Let's get this code. Right? And then you do count minus minus. Right? So now I'm counting down from 100. You know, that's pretty much what it is. Alright. If you didn't get it, that's fine. So let's do an infinite loop. What if a loop that doesn't stop, right? So what if we did this? So let's change the count to 1. Oh, we'll do another one. Well, count is greater than or equals to 0. Let's get this code. And then we do count plus plus. So in this case, your code is never going to be false. Initial count is 1, and I'm saying, hey, if the count is greater than or equals to 0, right, I want to get the count. But then I'm keep adding it from 1, 2, 3, right? It's never going to come back to, it's never going to be less than 0. Does that make sense? So whenever you run into something like this, you're doing something wrong. So when you do this, what's going to happen is the memory is going to start to shut down slowly, right? It's doing count at a very high speed, right? So we don't want to do that. So this is called infinite loop. And make sure try to avoid that. And that's fine. When you run into just right away, just stop it there, right? Otherwise, it's going to run out of memory. Okay. So that's what we have for now. So now, if I were to give you another classwork, right? So count up to 100 from 0 and print only the even numbers, right? So this is the classwork. A lot of classwork today, right? That's good. So let's say if you had to do this, count up to 100 from 0 and print only the even numbers, because what we have done here is we are printing everything from 0, 1, 2, 3, 4. Now I just want you to print me 2, 4, 6, so forth. Okay. Yeah, I'm coming. One second. Yeah, I said you do. That's fine. That's one way to think about it.
Yeah. Work hours. Like, would they want? Oh,
Yeah, but that's good. That's great.
yeah, it's something.
Yeah. You can also, yeah, that's okay.
So how many times it doesn't
That's okay. That's one way to do it, but that's not how I want it. That's okay. So this is good, but find another way to do it. Yeah.
Is this how you want it?
No, it's not right. That's okay. That does the job. Plus equals 2.
I did the same thing.
But what if I do the count from 5? Every 5 numbers. This doesn't do it. So this code is okay, but there's a bug to that code. Like your original code. Like now I'm counting 2, right? What if I start counting every 5 numbers? If I wanted to find out only the even numbers. Right? So 5, 10, 15, right? So then that doesn't work. So we need the math.
So it's still one plus one.
Yeah, this is what it is.
It's probably equal to
But that's good that we make this mistake. It's a good thing. It's a disappointing day for you. You can't do the exercises. But that's okay. Yeah, but no, it could have a defect. Doesn't mean anything. Just had bad luck with that one. What's up? Is that doing the right thing?
Yeah.
Okay. That's the right thing.
let's see how you want it.
No, it's not here. You have to write it logic. Write it logic. And then beta 1. Yeah, you can write it. That's what I'm
Not done that yet.
Okay, alright. Alright, so let's go over it. He's blaming me. That's fine. Alright, it's pretty simple actually, right? Some of them got it. Let's just change the count to 1 or 0. So this is it, right? Well, count is less than equal to 2, but only if count modulus 2 equals to 0, that means 2 goes into any of those numbers. So you'll first say 2 divided by 1, something left, right? I don't care about that. 2 divided by 2, nothing is after that. So it's equals to 0. And then so forth, right? And only if it's that, then I'm only printing. Otherwise, I'm not printing anything. But I'm still keeping the count. So all you have to do is insert this logic here, and that should have done it. Okay, so that's... This goes back to same as FizzBuzz, right? So what we've done is iteration hasn't changed. I'm still iterating almost 100, not almost 100 times, right? But then during iteration, every count that so very first time when we run, the count is 1, right? So when you divide, when we do the modulus, right? 1 into 2, that equals to, remainder is what? Is 1, right? And then when we do 2, then what? Remainder is what? 0. So if 2 divided by 2, that means it's an even number, right? And then I'm just saying print out that value, right? And then it goes, the count becomes 3 because you're also adding 1 to it after each time. So now, again, the remainder would be what? 1. So now let me ask you this. If I want to say, hey, now find me all the odd numbers. That's one way to do it, right? And or you could just do this, right? It's not equals to 0. So, but that's fine, right? That's fine.
So we can put count present, count model, wait.
Where? What do you mean?
Count model 3 equals 1.
What would you do divide by 3? Try it out here and let me check it. Okay? But you get the point? So again, that's okay. If you didn't get it right, that's not what we're looking. You're exercising your brain cells. That's what's important to me, right? Once we get to like a difficult problem, this is gonna be. It's like learning how to ride a bike for first time. So that's fine. Now, what I want to work on more realistic scenario, not this stuff that I hate. So let's remove all of that code base and let's do something that you can probably relate to. Yeah, this is cool stuff, man. Oh, we got a scanner here. I'm going to walk through the scenario one time and then let's see if we can. Your job is to test this scenario and then eventually we'll write a code base similar to that. We're building some sort of student enrollment system, right? And the student capacity is 10, right? So every time someone signs up, we need to what? Subtract student capacity, right? So there's a lot of stuff happening here, and this is intentional. I need you to learn how to read other people's code every now and then, right? And this is a good exercise to read it. So very first, we create an instance of scanner, right? The reason we did the scanner, maybe I take the student's name, right? So we say scanner, and we do the student capacity equals to 10, setting up the count. So the very first time when you're running your code, right, the count is going to be 0, right? Creating a while statement to enroll student until max number is reached. So now we need to do some sort of a while statement and say, hey, as long as I is less than the student capacity, so in our case, the count is the I, right? So the reason we name it I is called iterations, right? So you can call it a count, whatever, but when you go into real code bases, they're going to use I, so we might as well just get started with that. So and if the iteration is I is less than the student capacity, I want you to keep running this code inside of here, okay? So very first thing, we need to make sure, reset the count within the loop so the count is updated. So now we created it. So this is where the scoping matters, right? What we've done is all student capacity NI is reachable, right, by everyone pretty much, right, everywhere in the code base. But you see the updated student capacity, that's not reachable outside of this code base, okay? And we needed that. What we're doing here is that we're saying whatever the student capacity is, because we know it's true. If it wasn't true, I would never get into that loop, right? Since it's true, hey, let me subtract whatever the student capacity is, right? So 10 minus 10 minus 1, 10 minus 2, 10 minus 3. So keep giving us the updated capacity. And then you get a message saying updated student capacity. So you're saying you can enroll, and I want to kind of keep giving user the message, okay, you can enroll 9 more, you can enroll 8 more, right? As you keep enrolling new students, I'm keeping giving you updated count. Make sense? Right? And then a simple message to instruct user to enter student's name. So once we give the message saying you can enroll 9 more students, I would like to, okay, now, well, please enter the student's name, right? If it wasn't true, I would never get in here anyway, so it doesn't matter. Scanner takes the input from the user and display it in a console. So we're just system outing. The name doesn't matter. We are not calculating anything against name, so we can kind of just throw it in the trash, right? But that's not the idea of this code. We're just kind of telling you how many students you can enroll. Now, for our homework and stuff, when we do username and password validations, you're gonna have to store the name somewhere, right? And we'll figure this out. How can we store the name so we can validate that against, right? So just like how you've been logging into Gmail for all your life, now we're gonna figure out how to build that in next class probably. And then if the count reaches to 9, which is 10 minus 1, since count is gonna most likely start with 0. So if it reaches to 9, I also want you to tell the admin team that, hey, you have reached maximum number of students for this class and no more enrollment until next semester. Make sense? So if a count reaches to 9, because count starts from where? 0 all the time, right? Well, the loop incremented, and then obviously you need to keep incremented loop by 1 using the post increment. I know it's a lot to take on this code, but let's test this out. I'm going to share this code with you, and it's 9 o'clock. You're going to review this code, and let's see if there's a bug in this code. If there is a bug in this code, let's see if you can fix it. So that's going to be maybe work for homework, and then also review the materials. Like I said, Monday we're going to take it easy with the homework so that you can catch up on a lot of things, and then Thursdays we'll start giving you a lot of homework. All right, so let's run this code base and see what's going on. All right, so you can enroll 10 more students here, it's saying, right? So that's fine, that's a good code. So let's say, all right, you can enroll 9 more. One more. Okay, so it looks like you have reached maximum number of students on this class. I want you to individually review this code, right, for next, let's say 15 minutes or so, and then pull us in to see if you have a question on any of those lines, right? And then also review this code base at home, because we haven't really got into all the loops yet, which we're gonna do next class, and we'll take it from there. All right, so let me review this code base. And everyone who likes scanners, so this is great. All right, it's in Slack. Any questions from online? If if you have questions about this code base, please point it to Deepak. All right. Let's review this for next 10 minutes or so. And if you're good, you can head out. And for rest, we need to have questions and stuff. We can go over it. Yeah. They're all right. Just keep moving things around and see what happens. It doesn't have to be exactly how I did it. You can change it around. As long as you're understanding what's happening, that's what's important. Look, none of you guys are getting sick like that anymore, so that's the step. Yeah. All right, let's just quickly go over the homework assignment and then we'll. And then if you guys want to head out, that's fine. And if you have anyone has a question, you can stay back. We can address those questions individually. Okay. So the homework is this. You create a supermarket item finder, right? So let's say you go to a supermarket, right? You don't know which aisle has what, right? So that's what we're trying to figure out. Take input from a user, and based on the input, so you can take the input from scanner, right? Using scanner, it should display user which aisle has the item. For example, user enter milk, your program should say aisle 8, right? Because the milk is in aisle 8, right? If the item is not found, display a message saying out of stock. Please create a program for below requirement. So this is kind of like a very weird requirement that I go to supermarket all the time. So milk, eggs, french fries, candy, frozen pizza, donuts, diapers, apple, and orange, right? So create that program and then take it from there. Now you don't have to submit. Like Monday's homework, you don't have to submit. We'll go over it. If any of you guys want to kind of go over your homework, I'll take one of your homework and we can review it together, all right? But that's one of the homework, and then should we do one more? Okay, let's see. Help me say yes. Wow. Okay.
You can send us individual. If we send us homework.
No, not that's not. Everyone's equally important here. Okay, so
No,
the,
if they don't need.
um, that's fine. We'll do that one. It's not going away anyway. So you don't do it now doesn't mean you still have to do it on Thursday. So every homework is already preset. So we have to finish all the homework, but it's just that if we do it now, you don't have to get it on Thursday. Um, but let's build this one out. Let's review that code base. It's very important that you understand that code base because your Thursday homework relies on that because we're going to start building the login system from Thursday, right? Which is kind of pretty much the actual code base. And then after once you're done with control flow, we're going to start with object-oriented programming. Okay, so building like a printer or bank accounts, things like that. Well, not bank account, banks, right? So this is pretty cool stuff, but before we get there, we have to understand this, no, the process. All right. Anyone in class has any questions?
It's not about while.
Sorry.
It's not about while.
Just the homework.
The homework?
Yeah.
It's you can use switch. I want you to use switch. Yeah. Think about how you can use switch. Do not use things like hash map, this, that from Google, right? That's not what we want to use, right? That's later, way down the road, we are going to use that. For this, try to use switch and see if you can accomplish that. It should be easy. It's not a big deal, right? So now, do you still want another homework?
Yeah.
Oh, all right. Okay. Changed my mind. Uh, this one is pretty interesting. Okay, I gotta show you the example first. All right. So this is a really nice one. Um, so for instance, we have this grade calculator, right? So it takes, you have two values that you have to have, score, which the student got, and then what is the possible max score, right? So in this case, let's say the max score is 200, right? And if the score is between 90 to 100, 90 to 100, you will give them A. If it's between 80 to 89, so forth, right? Whatever that math that you have to do. And then when you run this code, it gives me the letter grade and also the percentage that I have. So if I change this to 100 and I run this code, I should get an A in this case, right? 90%. So you can keep, it doesn't matter what the max score is, right? So if you look at SAT scores, right, which is 1600, and let's say your score is 1200, which is not that great, but that's fine. You still get the correct calculation. So we are building a great calculator that anyone can use based on any scores, any max scores, any scores, right? So think about how we can do those math. And if you don't get it right, that's totally fine. You just, as long as you're practicing this stuff. I know a lot of people say, oh, you don't have to be a math thing to be a programmer. It's good to be, right? So I know like you don't have to be super expert, like we're not doing any calculus, this, that, but basic fractions and basic algebra we have to do, right? Take this requirement and work on it. But very first one, try to finish the other one first because that one's a bit on the easier side. And then work on this and then try to finish it off, right? Please don't try to Google it. I mean, even if you Google it, you're probably not going to get the exact answer on this one, but still try to do it yourself. I'll tell you when you can start Googling stuff out, right? If you Google stuff out now and get answered, it's not going to help you a lot, right? But at some point, you are going to Google a lot, and we'll get there. Any questions on this homework?
This
So
is also the switch method.
you can do switch, yes. Actually, yes, that's right. You can do switch on this one as well. And you can also do scanner to take the score, all right? Those are the two hints we can do. That's pretty much it.
Trying to make us hate the scanner, right?
No, scanner is not something we use anyway. All right, any questions from online about the homework? I think that's good for today, right? Yeah. All right. If you have any questions, stay back. If not, let's break, and I'll assign the homework on our channel.